Listening to the best music of the hottest tracks and coolest mashups of the moment. Happy days, beautiful people. Welcome to the Africa Today's show. I hope you're having a great day, great morning. It's your girl, Iwetan Lungoria, this beautiful, beautiful evening here in the 254 Nairobi, Kenya, on the best radio station, the Black Hot Fire Radio Network, media of the 21st century. But also, you can download our app on the Google Play Store, Steam on www.blackhotfirenetwork.com for amazing healthy supplements, apparel, clothing with the Black Hot Fire Radio logo on it. Sending you so much love and light this beautiful evening here in Kenya. It's evening, morning, afternoon, whatever you're at. How are you doing, Mr. Nisa?
I should have told you start at 8:30 instead of 8 o'clock. I'm gonna be in a bad air time for 30 minutes.
Really?
I don't know if you can even hear me now. I'm gonna be in a bad air for 30 minutes. My internet's gonna go off.
Okay.
I'm in the countryside air time. I think my internet's gonna go up at least 30 minutes. But I sent you a video. It might be about 15, 20 minutes. You might want to play that until I come back.
Just continue with it as before. Right. That's okay. At least I have a little bit of understanding about the Moors, so I can definitely continue with it.
Yeah, that's good.
Alrighty.
Cause
that's okay. I'm sorry.
I know. I know because I'm probably choppy right now.
Alrighty, no problem. You'll definitely follow later.
Yeah.
Alrighty, guys.
I know I'm gonna go out. Just start with that video there every time because my internet's gonna go out.
Okay, I'll definitely do that. We'll definitely be talking about the history of the Moors who created the European enlightenment. I'll definitely share a video of that conversation as we continue. But welcome everybody. You can definitely follow us in all the social media platforms. Click the subscription button on YouTube and invite more people to listening to amazing conversation about the Moors. Let's dive in right away.
Everyone's comfortable starting right here. Does anyone know what this is? It is Elephant and Castle. But what is the crest actually depicting? This is actually the Royal African Company. Some people call it the Guinea Company. And this is what there's a book on heraldry, and they have a section called Royal African Company. And can you see it says supporters to African blacks? Can we see that? All right, but this is important. We're going to come back to this, right? All right, so where did the action take place? Here we have a map of Africa, a map of Southern Europe. You've got the Mediterranean. You need to know where Egypt is. You need to know where Libya is. You need to know where Carthage is, where Numidia is, where Ceuta is, where Spain is, because all of these places are important in the story. Right, so you've all located those places? Okay, good. Now, the world in the year 500 AD to 1100 AD was quite an interesting place. The western part of the Roman Empire was in decline, and because the Roman Empire was the civilizing force in Western Europe entered the Dark Age. Things were going very badly indeed. The Dark Ages is one place in the world. Anyone know where? Europe. It doesn't mean the rest of the world was in a dark age. Now, what exactly was going on? According to a European professor, his name is Robert Briffaut, we read, cases of cannibalism were not uncommon. There were manhunts, not with a view to plunder, but for food. Are we understanding this? All right, now when I read that, the obvious question is, for real?
Yeah, I definitely said that in my mind.
A modern sophistry redeems the squalor of Europe from the 5th and 11th century. All right, what about the civilization? Is the bride of Andalusia. To her belong all the beauty and all the ornaments that delight the eye or dazzle the sight. It had raised streets drained by sewers. It had raised pavements. It had street lamps. And it had a population of 1 million people. Public schools and many colleges. Education was offered to go. I know people are thinking, Robin, you're exaggerating. We ready for this? Go inside. Cordova. The Spanish today call it La Mezquita. Not exactly jungle savagery, is it? We're going to very first people there. Haratin Berbers and the Chowchen Berbers. Then you had a second group of people. There was a European invasion of Egypt. And they had a big impact. And then and there was the Vandal invasion. The Vandals are Germanic speakers. Does that make sense? And that's a
educational system. It's so sad to actually find this out right now about the Moors, something actually I've been learning about, which is something we should have known like a long time ago, but it's not included in our history books or in our educational system, and it has been hidden away from us for a reason.
about it too much. But it's a very important part of history. Trust me on that one. If I've got some time, I might get into it a little bit later on in the presentation. Then, of course, there was the Arab conquest of North Africa. The reason why so many North Africans are called Arabs is because they're not.
I'm not sure if they teach this in the American curriculum. I'm not really sure about that. But in Africa, nothing like this is in our books in the educational system.
Indigenous to Africa. They come in from Arabia, they conquered a group of Europeans entering North Africa as slaves. And these people entering North Africa as slaves came from the Slavic states. Slavic states, Eastern Europe. Does that make sense? One of the reasons why Eastern Europeans are to this very day called Slavs, and one of the reasons why Western European beef with Eastern Europeans. And as you know, that's what Brexit was all about. And then you had another group of people joining the population in North Africa there after the 16th century. Does that make sense? Now, the point is, do not. Are we understanding this? And scholars do that. And why they do that is so they can present all Black North Africans as descended from slaves in the 16th century, and then present the Europeans that conquered during the Sea Peoples period as the original North Africans. Okay, now the original Moors, the oldest art in North Africa are the Saharan rock paintings. And the Saharan rock paintings, we feeling that image? And if you can Google them, you can see they're all Africans. And and that's what a typical Haratin looks like. So you now have Moors that look like this. Are we understanding that? Now, this woman is a part of Moorish history too. To decide the Spanish history. Then you've got the term Berber, and that's the term that Arab, The origins of Berber, by the way, is in ancient Egyptian. You can link Berber. You can link Cushitic, which is Somali. You can link Hausa or Chadic. They all go back to one parent, which is in the Horn of Africa. That automatically tells you that the very first Berber speakers were sub-Saharan Africans. Then you've got the term Arab. Now, a lot of scholars are happier using that because it's better than saying African.
Oh.
Do you see why people are happy saying that? Desert dweller. It's coming from the word Sahara. All right, now, the Arabian invasion of North Africa was of great consequence. The Arabs conquered their way across between 639 and 708 AD. All right, so what was going on in Spain? Well, in Spain, the Visigoths had been in control for the previous 200 years. And they are the ancestors of modern Spanish identity. Does that make sense? So if you're Spanish, your ancestors are the Goths. Does that make sense? And it's during this same time period, these German speakers basically conquer the Roman Empire. They also conquer their way into Britain, and they become the English. Do you get that? So what does that mean? It means before 500 AD, no, 400 and something AD, there weren't any English people living in England. Do you know where they were living? Germany. So what did Musa do next? He sent a reconnaissance mission of 500 African converts to Islam into Spain, led by an African in Spain, and they plundered a port, and they gave the port a new name. Right? And at that port, and that's the origin of the word tariff. Right? Did we know this? Aren't you glad you're here? All right, so in 711, forces were as fire. Their face pitch. Right? Origin and spread of the sickle cell trait into the Portuguese population, we examined 9 polymorphic DNA markers within the beta globin gene cluster defining the haplotype. The nature and geographic distribution of the different beta S haplotypes in Portugal suggests that the sickle cell trait. Okay, so we're interested in the first one, aren't we? Between the 8th and 13th centuries from the Mediterranean basin, Black Africa over that the 13th century. That's 700 AD to 1200 AD. Isn't that the period we're talking about? And what type of sickle cell is it, folks? The Benin haplotype. Now, what does the graphical term of Phoenician origin, and it originally derived from a Kushite capital city called Meroe. Now, the Greeks and Romans adopted the term Mori, but also described these same Northwest Africans as Nigri, black, and Adusti, scorched. And then we read on the Catholic website, Benedict the Moor was born a slave near Messina, Italy. We read on, read on, read on. Then at the very end it says, the surname, the Moor, is a misnomer. Moro, meaning the black. Now, if il Moro in Italian means the black, what does el Moro in Spanish mean? It means brown. Does that make sense? All right, so we're going to investigate. Now, there are also Wikipedia pages that claim that the term Moor is not an ethnic term. It's a religious term meaning Muslim. Does that make sense? All right. There are modern scholars that will concede that the term Moor does indeed mean black. But according to them, the word Moor means black in every single language except Spanish. Does that make sense? And some of you make sense? We got that? So what I did was I pulled up a Spanish Bible to find out how was that translated. And guess what word they used for black?
I'm sorry. Moor means by then the idea of Moors had spread across Western Europe. Moor came occasionally, Europeans will distinguish between black Moors and white Moors. One of the most the tragedy, but those North Africa and the Iberian Peninsula during the Middle Ages between 711 CE and 1492 CE. Muslim people of African descent controlled parts of Iberia, Portugal. And also what he said according to, he mentioned the Bible there. And here it says, the Moors were Muslims living in medieval Moses' death. The story of Moses fighting the Moors was embedded. Talks about what is a Moor in England, tract of open country that north, but I was just
I'm still in a bad
reading
thing.
up Moors the
There,
so
there were not any white Moors. That's the European going back trying to steal your history. There were not any white Moors ever. All right, make sure that's them going back as they try to steal your history. They lie about everything. They that's what I was going to talk about. But let me, Irritant, I know I'm in a bad area. I'm gonna go back out again. Go ahead, Irritant. I'm gonna go back out again. I got about 15 minutes to get to civilization. Go ahead.
Hold that thought. So you know what I did? called now, can you see where it's third paragraph, RSV, very dark. Can be ASV, more correctly, black. In the Old Testament. In this context, the word is hyperbolic. Suntan makes one swarthy, but not black. Although the simile at Song, chapter 5, verse 11, black. So, Rena, shiny black. Now, how black is that?
Skin.
Now, what May 1663. This is his diaries. And so we did. Only there was walking gallery, some of the Barbary Company. And there we saw a draft of the arms of the company which the king is of, and so is called the Royal Company, which is in a field argent, an elephant proper with a canton on which England and France is quartered, supported by 2 Moors. The And can you see that's that same Latin thing that I couldn't read earlier? So can you see? And then later on, it was now pretended that it was 2 Africans. Tools can be confused. Thanks. Okay, what about the Arabs? Now, the Arabs in Spain were mostly Southern Arabs and Yemenites, and even today, many of these people are Negroid. And taken with the Africans, the Islamic culture of Spain was largely a Negro achievement. For this reason, the culture is known as the Moors in Spain, a reference to the or whether they were some. Estimates, Cordoba alone, 80,000 to 80,000 a year, all beautifully handwritten and very richly bound. One copying shop at Cordoba employed 170 women, and women authors were highly esteemed. And what that means is there is therefore going to be a genre of black women writers once those documents are tracked down. The silk industry, agriculture where they were growing rice. Right now, impacting Europe. By 950 AD, centers of learning were just beginning in Christian Europe. In the year 1048, Yahya ibn Ibrahim, ruler of the Berbers of the desert, made a pilgrimage to Mecca. Yusuf raised an army said to have included every ethnic group in the Western desert and sent them across the sea into Spain, where the African army beat the Christians at Zal. You feeling that? Now, just to put it in perspective, Yusuf ibn Tashifin, can you see Mansa Musa's on the right? So can you see the right? So did they build anything in Africa? In Marrakesh, that's one of the monuments there. So if you go in that monument and you look up, that's what's there. Now, as ruler of Spain, Yusuf's forces seized Seville, dethroned its Islamic rulers. He accused of being pleasure and in Africa centered in Marrakesh, and the court in Spain centered in Seville. All right, now the Almoravid Empire was very extensive. Under their sway were the lands of Senegal, Morocco, Algeria, Tunis, and Spain, with 13 kings acknowledging the overlordship of Yusuf. So what did they achieve? Golden coinage to of the Christian Spaniards, and in were made in something was what. And the result then was the Kingdom of Aragon issued a crest that shows that the Christian cross has beaten the 4 Moorish princes. Does that make sense? All right, now can you see how the Moors are depicted? No ambiguity there, right? And then when the Habsburg dynasty came along, they took the same crest and turned it into, we've got the crowns. Can you see the hair? Are we feeling that? And, you know, you've got places like Corsica, Sardinia, those kind of places. You want to look at their flags. Yeah? We are on their flags. All right, now, that was the Almoravids. The next dynasty are the Almohades. And they began as a religious movement among the Masmuda Berbers of Morocco. And according to by Abu Shama in his Kitab al-Rabdatayan, blacks Sudan. Does that make sense? Preached against the Almoravid establishment, who he accused of being lax and luxurious. So Ibn Tumat himself was declared to be the Mahdi, which is the Messiah. What happened next? Well, Abdul Mumin, another Masmuda Berber, took control of the movement. He was a brilliant organizer who unified the various Berber groups into a cohesive force. And there was therefore a power struggle between the Almoravid establishment and the newly rising Almohades. And the newcomers triumphed in 1147. They seized Marrakesh and executed the last Almoravid monarch. The documents say he was deprived of his head. And 1150, they became masters of Spain. Thus, for a second time, says Lady Lugard, a purely African dynasty reigned upon the most civilized throne of Europe. This is why you've got to quote this stuff. You follow me? All right, so did they build anything in Africa? This is the Kutubia Mosque of Marrakesh. We feeling that? All right, now the city of Seville in Spain became the African capital in Spain. It was a fine city of famous gardens, squares, and a suspension bridge. It had good streets lined with magnificent buildings and spacious houses. The courtyards were planted with trees that bore oranges, lemons, and other fruits. And they had a population of perhaps 500,000 people.
Now pause this. I think you hear me now. So, as Europeans love to try to steal this history, they can't try to make fake things white more. This time, Europe was filthy, backward, uneducated. The kings and queens could not read or write. The Europeans were suffering plague after plague because of their hygiene. They didn't know how to practice good hygiene, so Europe was a mess. So this is Africa bringing civilization back into Europe again for the second time. Okay? We know this is African because the traditions are African, not European. And this is going to be the beginning of what they call their Renaissance, which they never give any African credit for. When I was growing up, they would tell you all the Europeans just started getting smart. I said, well, they get smart. Well, we just don't get smart. It was the Enlightenment period. They never tell you it was the African that turned the lights on while they were in the dark. And they never teach you that in none of their fake history books because you're dealing with a psychopath. European not just lies sometimes, but all the time. This is a trait of their civilization and their personality. They have some kind of really inferiority complex that they pushed all over the world when they finally got power. So they erased all history and tried to replace us with them. And it's absolutely insane because it's not their culture. It is wickedness. I give you that. But go ahead, every time. Go ahead.
This is the El Cazaba Palace. If you
Oh,
get the
pause
opportunity
it
to
one more
take
time,
a
every
look,
time.
take a look.
Pause it one time, every time. And
El
remember, as they were
Cazaba.
conquering, pause again, every time. Sorry, one more time. Remember, as they were conquering, the Europeans went burning down every library. Burning, they were still manuscripts, taken back to Europe, but they would burn libraries, thousands of years of knowledge down to the ground, and then try to claim the stuff, because most of the stuff they just learning still today, because they were too dumb. They were not spiritual, because knowledge and science is based on spiritual practices. Science itself is spiritual. Since they're not spiritual people, that information they can never understand it. So they would burn shit down to the ground. Go ahead, Irritan.
Of Seville. Now that building now is a cathedral, but you can infer what it would have been before it was a cathedral. It was. Meanwhile, did I mention that there were translation houses that were translating texts from Arabic to Latin? And by the 12th and 13th centuries, we get the rise of European universities. Bologna.
This is when the Europeans get all their knowledge, because Latin, they take from Latin to English, Latin to German, Latin to Spanish, Latin into French, in the French, and Latin into Dutch, right? So this is when you get the translation of them learning what medicine is. See, medicine, these are all African terms, right?
Mm.
So they start learning what medicine is, how to doctors, there were no doctors in Europe. So learn how to heal somebody. So all these manuscripts, as he's saying, are now being translated so the European can learn how to build a civilization. Because he's backward, he's a moron, he's ignorant, dirty, filthy. But they gave him a religion, but the religion ain't help him, you
Were they
know. They, go, go ahead every time.
were they also forced to convert to Islam? But they didn't really
No,
practice
no,
that
they
religion,
never
right?
forced. No, they never forced them. No, African was forced to do it with the white Arab, but the Moors were never really Islamic.
Yeah.
Irritan. They kept African spirituality and mixed it. Right. That's what all that stuff is. That's what all that Moor science is. So it's all Kemetic. It's all Kemet. Irritan. They took a more the new religion of Islam into Europe, but they didn't really practice it. They just kept the name, but they practiced what they call Sufism. Look this up, Irritan. Say, what's the definition of Sufism? Sufieism. Ism. Sufism. They're gonna tell you it's spiritual Islam. They're gonna tell you because they never really practiced Islam. It's just they're merging their Kemetic real science with this new religion, so they can pretend like they were following it for for the white Muslims. You find it, Irtan?
Mm.
Say what's the definition of?
Mystical Islamic
There you go.
belief practice.
So there you go. Mystical Irtan, meaning not the regular Islam that they do out here. It's mystical. So what it is, Irtan, it's really Kemetic African science. It's not really
To find the
Islam.
truth of divine love. That's what it says.
Yeah, they rap. So I'm breaking up for Irtan's break. All they did, Irtan, they wrapped Kemetic teachings up in Islam, but they couldn't merge the two, so that became your mystical side they call of Islam. But it's not really Islam. That's why they call it the mystical Islam. But it's not. It's just Kemetic. teachings, same thing they did with Christianity, right? They took Kemetic science and turned that into Christianity too. Same way they took Kemetic science and turned that into Islam. But what the Moors did was take out the Islam and just merge it back to African spiritual science. That's why it's called mystical. It's a mystical science. It's the real stuff. Oh, I think I lost airtime again. Let me know if you guys can hear me now. And I know, and it was that bad today. So, as the Europeans claim this, and like you always hear them talking about our enlightenment period, It's a lie. They never became enlightened. They're just as savage, as vicious as they always had. They took these manuscripts and translated them, and it gave them better understanding how certain things work, but it never changed their behavior. The behavior never changed, so there never was any enlightening period, as they like to call the age of enlightenment. That's just the transcribing of more science and them taking those practices and now implementing those sciences. But it never changed their behavior one way or another. You know, their behavior is still wicked as it was today. As they call it an enlightenment, it's not an enlightenment for them because they never changed. They just acquired more knowledge and more useful ways of doing things, or educated ways of doing things, but it never changed their behavior. It never changed them internally. So what they call an enlightenment is nonsensical because it never enlightened their society. They still practice the same theft, graft, cruelty, uh, uh, um, feudalism, because that's what they're setting up today, a feudal state, by masking it as capitalism. Everything they do is unequal, unfair. So there was never any enlightenment for these people. It was just a inundation of more information that they did not have from a society that was actually enlightened. That's why you heard Ayrton and Jim was talking about there was more women writers and more women equally put into society. We know that's African. European hates his women, the white Arab hates his women. All these other races hate their women, treat their women like garbage. So there was no equal society for any women on the planet unless they were African. And that's just a fact, right? So they can try to steal the history, but they can't because culturally it doesn't match up to them. It's not them culturally. Okay, I think your time's back. It's not them culturally, right? It's not their culture. I think your time's almost back. It's back. Okay, there you go. See, as much as they want to steal the history, they can't steal the history because it's not their culture. See, Africans have now adopted this fake European culture, but back then women were treated as equal in African society. Nowhere on the planet has any woman been equal except the black woman. The European woman's never equal. Asian woman never equal. East Indian woman never equal. So that society, as they try to claim the history as them, they can't because it's not their culture. So we know in Mars culture, the women were equal. They were doctors, lawyers, judges, landowners. They were equal in society. That's African. That's our culture. So you can't say that's you and claim our history when culturally these have never been your practices. And so as they take the information and learn from it, but they never change their behavior. So it never was an enlightenment, as they call it, an enlightenment period for them. They took manuscripts, right, and learned from what the African was teaching, but it never changed their behavior. So all they did was learn better practices on civilization. But it didn't teach them from being wicked and cruel and stealing and graft and murder and rape. Because that's why they wrote it out. They just told you, oh, it's the Renaissance. Europe is having a Renaissance. How you have a Renaissance when you have never had a science? You were never civilized. How you have a re-civilization? And then they never tell you where it came from. It just happened. You guys all been in the white school from Africa to America to all over. It just tells you about this Renaissance, leaving out the complete contribution of the African and the knowledge that they got from African people. Just completely wiped them out. All the science is African. All the mathematics is African. All the damn medication is African. All of it. You know,
Fashion.
medical. Go ahead. What'd you say, every time?
I said fashion.
Fashion? What now? Oh, fashion, you said. Oh, fashion,
Fashion. The
yeah.
fashion
Yeah, the fashion. Oh, yeah, that
industry.
they can bring that up. That's true. Yeah, they didn't even change their clothes. Fashion, hygiene, they didn't even never change their clothes. They used to go, they used to wear the same clothes their whole life. Imagine you wear the same clothes your whole life and never wash your ass. Bathing, all this stuff was there. You got to wash and clean yourself. That's why you got these plagues. Well, because of no rats, because they were filthy. They would take the waste and throw it out in the street. The streets of Europe were soaked in shit and piss and doo doo. That's why all these plagues and were dying out in the street. Had no resources. Europe is still today. That's why they're not as resource deprived. But they never connect that, right? They never connect. They never. This guy, you know, you're dealing with a psychopath and make a false history and put your face on, you know, they're the Phoenicians, they're the Egyptians, everybody that was black. Phoenicians were black people. Egyptians were black people. That's why they don't understand even these fake Arabs that are there today. They don't know none of those uh, historical practices, those religious practices. I don't call them religious, those science and spiritual practices, because it's not them. That's why all these goofy religions, Christianity and Islam, comes out of what? Black mysticism, of black science. And everybody knows this. But they can't tell the masses that because you destroy Christianity and you destroy Islam. All that, Buddhism, Hinduism, all comes out of the same playbook. African spiritual science. That's why your history's not taught to you, because you can trace it back easily. You say, hey, this Christian thing goes back to African spiritual science. This Islam shit goes back to African spiritual science. This Buddhism shit goes back to African spiritual science. This Hindu shit goes back to African spirit. Yes, all of it does. Because you were the teachers of the planet. All of it. And anybody being honest will tell you that. Honest historians will tell you, because you can't deny when you start researching and connecting the dots where all this shit came from. But since these religions are now control systems, they're about power and not truth. That's why the truth cannot come out, because they're about power. Islam is a power structure, power system. Christianity is a power system. Buddhism is a power system. And Hinduism is a power system. If anybody do any collective study, you can trace the breadcrumbs easily back to African spiritual science. That's why I had Irtan look up Sufism, which is considered Islam mysticism because it has nothing to do with Islam at all. It's African spiritual science wrapped in the name of Islam. It's esoteric, not exoteric. So we're going. Is the video over, Airtime?
Connection, so I have
Is it?
to go back again.
Yes.
But I know
Yes.
where we
Yeah.
were, so I'm just forward.
Okay. No problem.
Where do people like to begin in African history? Coins were made in Britain, organizer who unified the various Berber groups into a cohesive force. And there was therefore a power struggle between the Almoravid establishment and the newly rising Almohades. And the newcomers triumphed in 1147. They seized Marrakesh and executed the last Almoravid monarch. The documents say he was deprived of his head. And 1150, they became masters of Spain. Thus, for a second time, says Lady Lugard, a purely African dynasty reigned upon the most civilized throne of Europe.
And that more pause that the most civilized because the Africans were the civilized. The Africans were the civilizers. Exactly. Because Western Europe was uncivilized.
Right.
So, and we talking about the Almoravians, they come out of what we call modern day Senegal and Mali. So there's another African group going into Europe and civilizing it. Africans, not white Arabs, damn sure not white Europeans. Remember, white Europeans right now, that time, are barbarians, filthy, and uncivilized. They cannot read and write. The majority are ignorant. The majority cannot read or write. These are facts of history as they tell you their lies about the fake
Right.
Jesus and their civilization. It's all a lie. They can't read or write. They're morons. Africans bring these teachings into Europe.
Can you hear me, Mr. Nathan? Hello? Alrighty.
Africa. This is the Kutubia Mosque of Marrakesh. Let's take a look inside. All right, now the city of Seville in Spain became the African capital in Spain, was a fine city of famous gardens, squares, and a suspension bridge. It had good streets lined with magnificent buildings and spacious houses. The courtyards were planted with trees that bore oranges, lemons, and other fruits. And they had a population of perhaps 500,000 people. Zaba Palace. That building now is a cathedral, but you can infer what it would have been before it was a cathedral. It was the mosque. Yeah? Meanwhile, did I mention that there were translation houses that were established in certain parts of Europe that were translating texts from Arabic to Latin? By now, those places had borne fruit. And by the 12th and 13th centuries, we get the rise of the major European universities. Bologna in Italy, 1158. Montpellier in France, 1180. Rome, Italy, 1245. Cambridge, England, 1257. Are we feeling this? And this is the beginnings of what's going to become known as the European Renaissance.
Yeah, the European University. So exactly, the Renaissance. Pause that. That's going to become, like I said, the Renaissance, what they always lie about.
Right.
And your colleges, the main universities in Europe were started by the African, not by the European, because he was ignorant, illiterate, ignorant. So your Oxford, your Oxford and your what's the other one they got? What's the other one? And Cambridge, your Oxford, your Cambridge, and your other ones in France, all started and staffed at the time. You couldn't staff them with Europeans; they were stupid. They didn't know nothing. But the African, being loving, wanted to enlighten everybody, give everybody education. The European wants to turn off your lights, make sure you don't get educated. The African wants to give you education, so you know they were black. See, culturally. See, these are cultural differences. Everywhere the European goes, he turns off the lights. He denies education, school fees, all kind of wicked shit. Where the African goes, it's always loving, caring. encompassing, giving everybody free education, want to get everybody knowledge. That's why Cambridge was built. That's why Oxford was built. Culturally, you know this is an African and not a European who steals and takes, doesn't give anything. There's nowhere on the planet in their history where they ever gave anybody anything but misery. So you can't claim a people's history when it's not you culturally. This is not you culturally. You sit there and say you're us, but this has never been your culture. Nowhere you went. You've never given anybody nothing. You've stolen and taken everything. The African always went out and get. That's how you got Christianity, Islam, Buddhism. The African sharing knowledge about how the universe really works. You effed it up because you took the teachings and made fake religions for power. Because your culture is about domination and power. You took African teachings and you bastardized them for power. That's where you get Christian insanity, Islamic babble, Buddhism, Hinduism. You took the teachings and turned it into a power-based fear system. That's your culture. African, that ain't African's culture. African culture teaches love, kindness, helping everybody. That's our natural culture. So you can't claim to be us when the culture doesn't match. You ain't never went nowhere, built no college for nobody black in your life, or anything to benefit anybody else in your life. So to claim to be us is crazy. That's not your nature, and it's nowhere in your culture, ever. See, I understood as I started learning, culturally, this couldn't have been you. This can't be you. Nowhere in your history have you ever acted loving and kind to anybody. This is African. So when you try to claim Egypt with your fake movies, and everybody knows the Egyptians went out and taught everybody, that's where you get all your fake religions from. But the African go out trying to teach you spiritual science. That ain't you. I said, oh no, this ain't. I said, this ain't no white people doing that. This ain't your culture. And it ain't your nature. Your nature is to steal, rape, and kill. That's your nature. And all history books, since you got on the planet, write about
When
you. Steal, rape, and kill. But go ahead, Eric, go ahead.
when Musa visited, traveled to Egypt, so I asked him a question. I was like, okay, did anybody give you a tour? He's like, I cannot allow any current quotes unquote Egyptian to give me a tour of my own history. It doesn't add up. Like it doesn't make sense to me,
Exactly,
So
because
he
it's not
refused.
exactly it's not theirs. He's right, because it's not them. They know it's not.
Yeah.
They know it's not them. Every time, them people up there you see in Egypt today are invaders. It's not them. Culturally, you can't claim. But see, that's how they dumb down Africans with the fake religion, the fake. But if you go back to your culture era time, which they stole from it, you would know
Right.
they're lying. You understand their lies. Because only the African era time is kind of. That's why you got a China square. Only African lets other people come in and eat off them era time. Nobody else does that. The African doesn't even know
Thanks
how
to
to
our
be racist
government,
era
so we
time.
don't even know how to be
No, but you would have to.
That's why
Not
we
just the
need a lot of
government. Not
sense.
just the government era time. You as a people, you wouldn't patronize that store if you were racist.
True. That is true. That is true.
Okay, okay. I give you an experiment here, Tanner, and I know what happened. You can put the cheapest African store in China, and I bet no one will go to it. You be the cheapest place. It'd be cheaper than all the other Chinese stores around you. All
Oh,
your stuff would be the cheapest, and
it's a fact.
you would go out of business.
It's a fact.
Hey, I might be in a bad area. Can you guys hear me? Or is it ear time? Am I going in and out? Or is it ear time?
No, you're good. I can hear you.
Okay, that's good. Like I was saying,
Can you
it's
hear
you
me?
can put a black. Yeah, I hear you good now. You can put an African store, say Chinese, African square in the middle of China, and it'll be the lowest prices. Chinese ain't gonna buy from you. They're not gonna buy from you here, John. You'll go out of business with the cheapest prices. You'll go out of business because the African is the only person on the planet
I agree with
who doesn't see racism. He doesn't act in a racist nature because that's not your nature. Like when you told
that.
me that day, like that day when you told me, Keith, I can't hate nobody. Of course you can't. It's not your nature. It's not your nature to hate, Irritan. That's not your African nature to hate. That's not who you are naturally. But it's their nature.
Right.
So when they're stealing your history, that's when you know, nah, this ain't them because this ain't their culture. This ain't their behavior. When they try to claim down there white Moors and all this old crazy shit, you know, it's a lie. Because the Moors, once again, opened up free schools here, Tom, free to teach Europeans how to read and write. All the women were what? Educated. Women were doctors, lawyers, on land. That's not European culture. They can't stand they women. That's African culture. That's African. So you know that ain't was no white Moors because the African woman was equal
Yeah,
because
and I
that's
can
ancient
definitely
African.
go.
Say it again.
I'm saying
Is it
obviously the
airtime?
fact that they control Google, they
Oh, of
absolutely
course.
control Google, so they have to add everything about us to their subject or whatever they're trying to say. They have to include themselves in it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. I'm listening to you airtime.
Sorry. Yeah.
You going?
So it
Either you
definitely
going in
makes
and
sense.
out.
The
I'm
Moors
going
were
out.
literally after. I
Yeah,
believe it's just on my end, a little bit of glitch on my end.
yeah.
Jovi, how you doing? Jovi's here. She has a story for us here. She said we were at the mall today, y'all, and there was this Mzungu who has a baby mama, Tanzania, and we had to give him that work.
Yeah, but look, I wish she would have. I wish she'd
Imagine
tell
the
her what happened.
stress.
Yeah, exactly. What she said. Exactly. That's what you see. As Joby, as Joby standing for the African people as she's supposed to. You know, when you see your
Right.
people get mistreated, she stepped in and handled that. I can't wait to hear the whole story. What happened
Right.
because she didn't sit by
And then she said,
because the African lady behind the counter was going to be
right,
kind and meek and sad enough docile. And so Joby stepped in then. Joby's not the docile African. She was going to stand and defend her family member. What she said here, Tom, what happened now?
William, you can as I watch, as it should be, girl.
Say it again, Ayrton. I didn't hear you. You went out. I didn't hear you. Say it again. What did Joby say she did?
She said, I told him you can't be disrespectful as I watch.
Okay. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
imagine the look on Mzungu's face when Joby said that. I can imagine. I can imagine all the other African people
German
around
mosquito.
Joby. What your mosquito say?
Hmm. If we can't hear the vibe, there's been no sound on his vibe show the whole week. Really?
I told him to check his. I know it's one time I think he got to check his sound. I don't know why. So when you guys do your show, you got to check your sound. I ain't been able to check his sound. I checked it one day. It was no sound on there. You're right, Jim Mosquito. And that was like Tuesday. I listened to it. I meant to tell him. I forgot to tell him. I meant to tell him, hey, Canvas, you got no sound, man. You rambling about nothing. But that's the day he got to check his sound before he
Sir.
goes live. I meant that this month. I think I seen it Tuesday. I said, he ain't got no sound.
There's a party has to switch on the mixer. So I think maybe he forgets about that part also. But we'll definitely work on that. Oh, there's a video I wanted to share. Mr. Newsom, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Before we continue with this
Hey, did you guys see Joe and them out at the pool living their best life, eating all kind of chicken and potatoes?
I'm sharing
Hey,
the video.
hey,
When white
huh?
people came to Africa,
Now you can
Go
go
ahead.
on.
No, I was saying if you guys seen the video with Joe, I shared the
they
video of Joe
came
and them. I
showing
shared the video
themselves
with Joe and
as
them. I think we got a delay. Go ahead, Airtime. Go ahead. Go ahead.
when white people came to Africa, they came showing themselves as superior to the black people,
Which is
digging
great.
out things that black people taught them. You know, what we don't have in our history books is that the civilization we have in Europe today was brought to us by black people. Even black people don't know that. Even many black people don't know that.
Exactly.
They don't know that the
Exactly.
Moors, they were West Africans and North Africans and Central Africans that came to Europe and ruled Spain. They brought civilization to us. They showed us how to use soap, how to be clean, how to behave like a decent human being, you know? All you know that before the Moors brought civilization to Spain. Did you know that the Moors ruled in Spain for 700 years? Where is that in our history books? It's nowhere to be found. Because why? If you are giving black people that power of having once ruled over white people, wouldn't black people start like white people?
They would start.
And where are
They
we
would
now? They
start
have to
acting.
hide that
They would
history
start.
from you
They
people
would.
because
They would start acting like
knowing
Joby
your
in
true
that
history
mall in
is knowing your
Tanzania. Exactly. They would start acting like Joby in that mall in Tanzania. If you knew your true history, if you knew it was you that civilized that this beast talking crazy to this Tanzanian, you would do what Joby do. You would check his ass. Go ahead.
true power. And knowing your true power means you will break out from that system.
Yeah, live and direct. A lot of comments saying the Tanzanian baby mama was laughing. That what really hit the most. And then General Mosquito read about that. Jason Hill, welcome. It's going to take another form of evil to change the physical because that nice crap has to go. That is so true. We do have General Mosquito saying, no, you crystal clear. Good evening, Jeeper Jabber. But as we continue with the conversation, I'll definitely be reading the comments right ahead.
And therefore things fell apart. There was African and Arab disunity. I don't want to get into that. No, let me get into that. Why not? Have we got time? There's a document, Abu Ghaffar refusing the post of Secretary of Grenada, and he refused the post because he had to work along the Sultan's son. And he wrote, the dark-skinned Berber seemed to him far below his own intellect. All right, now the Kingdom of Granada. Right, this is now the Kingdom of Granada was the last border of the Moors in Spain. It was not much that was now left of them. Between 1238 and 1260, Fernando III of Castile and Jaime I of Aragon conquered Valencia, Cordoba, Seville, and Murcia. And the rule within this limit, however, their kingdom was destined to endure for another 2 centuries and a half. Though hemmed in on all sides, the Moors were well served by soldiers. The people of the conquest placed their swords at the disposal of the one remaining Mohammedan king. 50,000 Moors are recorded to have fled to his protection from Valencia and 300,000 from Seville as to the Castilian crown. The founder of the dynasty of the Beni Nazir, i.e. the Nasrids, an Arab called Ibn al-Ahmar, the red man, because of his fair skin and hair, was a vigorous sovereign. So this now is not an African dynasty. This is now an Arab dynasty. Does that make sense? But because they worked out better to marry him off to this woman and keep that going. So by the time we get to the end of this dynasty, they're black. So yeah, they stepped very correctly here. What have we got? Okay, now in the case of Ibn al-Ahmar, we read, he paid homage and tribute to Fernando and his son Alfonso the Learned, not, however, without more than one struggle to free himself from their yoke, and from that time forward, Granada, with its surrounding territory, was generally left alone. All right, now what's there? We feeling this? By the way, if you ever go to the site of Alhambra and you want to document what's there, it will take you about 4 hours to photograph everything. And that's if you're at it, yeah? All right, towards endgame. After 417, however, Muslim leadership in Granada became more and more unstable. There were short-lived reigns, factional fighting, and rulers. The kingdoms of the Christians, Aragon and Castile, had become united by the marriage of Ferdinand and Isabella. From 1484, they campaigned against the Moors and gradually closed in and then blockaded the city. So we get the conquest of Granada, 2nd of January, 1492. Ferdinand and Isabella entered Granada as its masters. They exiled Abu Abdallah. Abu Abdallah is his proper name, but in European accounts, he's called Boabdil. Abu Abdallah, Boabdil, same person. So they exiled Abu Abdallah, where his descendants learned to beg for their daily bread. 4 years later, King Manuel of Portugal ordered the expulsions of the Africans. Those expulsions continued up to the time of King Philip III, who completed the policy in 1609. Some returned to North and West Africa, but others fled elsewhere in Europe. Where in Europe did some of them go? England. You follow me? John Blank, all that stuff. Yeah, they end up here, some of them. It is stated, writes Professor Lane Poole, that no less than 3 million of Moors were banished between the fall of Granada and the first decade of the 17th century. They were cleaned out. All right, now the question is how do the Spaniards remember this? Now,
And pause it. And so this is when you finally get the African losing power globally. We go from the top to the bottom globally now. We're really fucked up now. Globally, we're fucked up. We are a fractured people. We're conquered, and the Europeans are about to put savage brutality on us. Wait, slavery? Most of the Moors went into slavery, right? A lot went into slavery, end up in Haiti, Jamaica, all in Barbados. Some like went to North Africa, went back into Africa. So we're about to fall and become savaged by these savages. Boy, this is the 500-year reign right here of savagery on African people. Go ahead, Tom.
Oh my gosh.
Raggy Omar. And it's like, bruh, you dropped the ball. You're going to see how Raggy Omar dropped the ball. Talking about things that don't matter when things that do matter don't get mentioned. Does that make sense?
Always.
What's important is there's a Spanish ritual where they've got these puppets that they're holding up. And the puppets you can infer, one of them is supposed to be Ferdinand, one of them is supposed to be Isabella, one of them is supposed to be Boabdil, Abu Abdullah, and one of them is Boabdil's mother. Now, the mother is veiled. Does that make sense? But you can see her hands. All right, check this out, you all.
The only remnants of Islamic Al-Andalus in this procession are these giant puppets of Granada's last Muslim rulers, Boabdil and his queen. But of the Jews, nothing remains. And those who converted even lost their identities. They were given Christian names. But to the church, they would always be infidels at heart.
Did you like the betrayal of Abu Abdallah and his mother? Are you feeling that? And notice it wasn't me that did that. I ain't got nothing. They didn't ask me, trust me. That's how the Spanish are remembering that. All right, a European scholar's assessment. Professor Lane Poole says, in 1492, the last bulwark of the Moors gave way before the crusader Ferdinand and Isabella, and with Granada fell all Spain's greatness. For a brief while indeed, the reflection of the Moorish splendor cast a borrowed light upon the history of the land, which it had warmed with its sunny radiance. The great epoch of Isabella, Charles V, Philip II, Columbus, Cortez, and Pizarro.
Exactly. That's why. Pause it. That's why they came out as a power, because of all the Moorish teachers. But they couldn't last long. Remember, Spain as an empire and Portugal didn't last long because as the Moors went into slavery and murdered off, they didn't have the knowledge anymore, so they didn't last long as an empire. That knowledge rolled into Britain and France. So Britain becomes the power and France becomes the power, and Germany. But the reason why Spain at the time and Portugal become the first European powers because of Moorish knowledge. Go ahead, Irtan.
Right.
Then followed the abomination of desolation, the rule of the Inquisition, and the blackness of darkness in which Spain has been plunged ever since. In the
So
land,
still up to now, they're still trying to claim that the Moors were white.
Now, most
Are they
not
trying
to
to?
be only the Starks races. They try to put in the books. They know the Moors are black. They put in the movies that the Moors are black. Starks races try to do that because they're upset. They don't want to admit that this civilization, them getting educated, are
Right.
about black people. But this is the fact of history. Europeans have always been morons in history. They've never been civilized. So this is them getting civilized. But like you said, in the books, they say, oh, it's the Renaissance, it's the Great Enlightenment. They just say it came from nothing, Iritan. They just all of a sudden knew how to do shit. They went from stupid to smart, Iritan. All of a sudden, by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's what
They're
they
not
write in
trying to
their history
acknowledge
book.
the Moors because also, right, they're trying to refute the civilization of the Moors, literally from the black people.
Yeah, but they can't because when you go to those that civilization is so magnificent, they ain't torn none down. Go to
Yeah.
Spain and Portugal. Those structures are still up here, Tom. They didn't have the heart to tear them down.
Yes.
Those structures are still there.
Right.
where science was once supreme.
But you
The
know what?
Spanish
The truth can never be hidden. Can never be hidden at all. So, yeah.
doctors became noted for nothing but their ignorance and incapacity. And the discovery of Newton and Harvey were condemned as pernicious to the faith. Where once 70 public libraries had fed the minds of scholars and half
Exactly. Pause it. Exactly. Pause it. Because remember, pause that. Remember, see, the teachings of real educational knowledge was a threat to the church. Like you said, Newton, who learned from those papers, came from Africa, and when you get science and physics, which is really African science, African spirituality, that was a threat to the fake Christian church that was just, being made because that's a lie. It's a threat to the power.
Mm.
So all that Moorish knowledge had to be burned or destroyed because it's a threat to these religions.
Right.
Because truth is truth. Either it is or it isn't.
Yeah.
And the church couldn't deal with that because it isn't. It's all a
Exactly.
lie. Go ahead, Tom.
Jiba Jabba, hope you're doing well, Jiba Jabber. He's General Mosquito here. He's saying till the date Spanish people still look black because of the Moors, and Jiba Jabber saying
I don't know, they
the
look black, they look
Sicilian.
mixed. I say they look mixed. The Sicilians, yeah, where the Moors ruled outright.
Mm-hmm.
Southern Italy, Sicily, Portugal, and Spain, they look mulatto. Yeah, a lot of them
Right,
still look mulatto because of the
right.
Moors mixture.
Okay. General Mosquito is saying conquered in the same way globally, proof that we all the same people. Jibber Jabber is saying that's how the Portuguese and the Spaniards learned to sail the globe. The Moors created the
Exactly.
sextant, charting routes via trains and constellations.
Exactly. That's the reason why they were the first Europeans to be able to sail. Exactly. Because of Moorish science. Go ahead, John.
Right.
Much indifference to learning afterwards prevailed that the new capital, Madrid, possessed no public library in the 18th century. And even the manuscripts of the Escurial were denied in our own
See,
days to the
you
first
listen,
scholarly historian of
pause
the
it, everything.
Moors,
See,
though himself
by the
a
time the
Spaniard.
white people got
The
it back, there's
16,000
no more libraries. The libraries are gone. He said, but 18th century, where you had 700 libraries throughout Spain that was free. White people get it back, the libraries are gone every time. See, they're culturally shut off the lights, culturally try to take education away. That's their
Mm,
culture. That's why there's school fees in Africa. That's their culture. Good.
mm,
looms of Seville soon dwindled to a fifth of their ancient number. The arts and industries of Toledo and Almeria faded into ornament and use, were destroyed because cleanliness savored too strongly of rank infidelity. In other words, if you washed yourself too much, that proves that you're not a real Christian. Get it?
See,
That's what that
if you
means.
wash your ass,
The
if you
land was
wash your ass,
deprived of
brother,
distinct.
if you wash your ass every time like a human being, you wasn't a Christian. Because Christians are supposed to be stanky and have dirt and filth in their assholes. You know, you taking a bath every time is a problem. Go ahead.
mm-hmm.
Full irrigation of the Moors grew impoverished and neglected. The
That's
written
what he
and
said.
manuscripts of the Escurial were denied in our own days to the first scholarly historian of the Moors, though himself a Spaniard. The 16,000 looms of Seville soon dwindled to a fifth of their ancient. The industries of Toledo and Almeria faded into insignificance. The very baths, public buildings of equal ornament and use, were destroyed because cleanliness savored too strongly of rank infidelity. In other words, if you washed yourself too much, that proves that you're not a real Christian. Get it?
Huh?
Doctors became noted for nothing but their ignorance and incapacity. And the discovery of Newton and Harvey were condemned as pernicious to the faith. Where once 70 public libraries had fed the minds of scholars and 500,000 books had been gathered together at Cordova for the benefit of the world, such indifference to learning afterwards prevailed that the new capital, Madrid, possessed no public library in the 18th
Because
century.
you can't
And even the manuscripts of the
learning,
Escurial were
Ayrton,
denied
is
in
a
our
threat to your religion. What you learn, you can't keep nobody religiously indoctrinated here, John, because it's a lie. But also, that is just not their culture. They don't believe in educating everybody. They don't want people educated because educated people overthrow people here, John. You know things are wrong when you're educated. They don't believe in that. That's
That's
why they want to keep everything unequal and unfair, especially educationally. They've done it everywhere they go. America's the same way. They got here, the educational system is unfair and unequal. That's their culture. Go ahead,
right.
John, you got it.
own days to the first scholarly historian of the Moors, though himself a Spaniard.
That's why they cannot
The
claim to be you,
16,000 looms of
Irritan.
Seville.
They can't claim to be your loving and you're gonna educate like when you was in that around Christmas, you was in that orphanage teaching the children. You did that because you're African
Right.
and love it. That's your nature. That's not their nature, Iraton. So they can't claim your history and your culture because culturally that's not them. The
Right.
lies, the lies give them away because culturally they've never done that.
And most things literally come to us naturally. Naturally.
soon dwindled to a fifth of their ancient number. The arts and industries of Toledo and Almeria faded into insignificance. The very baths, public buildings of equal ornament and use, were destroyed because cleanliness savored too strongly of rank infidelity. In other words, if you washed yourself too much, that proves that you're not a real Christian.
What does it mean? Like when you wash yourself too much, it means you're not a real
This,
Christian.
this, the same because their culture creates Christianity. They're filthy people, Iraton. You see them in we've done so many shows. They're filthy people, Iraton. They don't believe in washing their bodies, washing their ass, their feet, their coochies and stuff. They don't believe in
So if
cleanliness,
you wash
Iraton.
yourself too much, it means you're not a real Christian. That's what
Yeah,
they
because
mean. So
they
you
say,
shouldn't wash
yeah,
yourself.
yes, they say you're not following the cultural practices of the people that created
I'm,
Christianity.
I'm following. Okay, that
Yes, that's why
literally doesn't
that's
sound
why.
right.
Yes, it does sound right because they created Christianity. It's their fake religion. So they tell you you got to be in line with their culture. If it's not doing our cultural practices, how can you be the religion that we created here, John? That's what they're saying.
Right.
It don't make sense
And also,
because you
it
shouldn't
doesn't
be filthy.
make sense, of
Yeah,
course.
but go ahead.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. That's why I had to like rewind it again, And I'm like, okay, so you shouldn't wash yourself too much. That you can literally fit into their religious culture. Jerome Mosquito is saying in the West, they've implemented this by having private schools where you receive real education and public schools where you're given basic education.
Get it? That's what that means, right? The land deprived of the skillful irrigation of the Moors grew impoverished and neglected. The richest and most fertile valleys languished and were deserted. Most of the populous cities which filled every district of Andalusia fell into ruinous decay, and beggars, friars, and bandits took the place of scholars, merchants, and knights. So low fell Spain after she had driven away the Moors. Such is the melancholy contrast offered by her history. Now,
You're
let me
back.
just say one thing about this. In the 19th century, that's the period where scholars were developing theories of white racial superiority. Does that make sense? And there was something that was around called the Negro question. And the great philosopher John Stuart Mill addressed the Negro question by saying two things. What about ancient Egypt?
I'm
Outside
sorry, guys.
into ruinous decay, and beggars, friars, and bandits took the place of scholars, merchants, and knights. So low fell Spain after she had driven away the Moors. Such is the melancholy contrast offered by her history. Now, let me just say one thing about this. In the 19th century, that's the period where scholars were developing theories of white racial superiority. Does that make sense? And there was some after she had driven away the Moors. Such is the melancholy contrast offered by her history. Now, let me one thing about this. In the 19th century, that's the period where scholars were developing theories of white racial superiority. Does that make sense? And there was something that was around called the Negro question. And the great philosopher John Stuart Mill addressed the Negro question by saying two things. What about ancient Egypt? And the next one was, what do you think he said next? What about Spain?
Hmm.
And at the time, no one could answer because this book had come out. What were people going to say now? What about Spain? All right, so my name's Robin Walker. I'm part of the Black Secret Education Project. We are quietly empowering the people. Definitely take a photograph of this. Our website is www.theblacksecret.co.uk. It is a subscription site. So if you want to subscribe, you can get all of our content. But if you don't want to subscribe and you want the free book, 100 Black History Facts, give us your email and we will send you that book. Go through that site, get that material. And that concludes the presentation, The Civilization of the Moors. Thank you very much.
Okay.
As he said, as he was saying, as they were, as and 100 years ago, they started erasing all this history because they wanted to make the African keep him on the bottom and keep his mind messed up. Because understand, they were stealing out of Africa. Africa's the wealthiest continent. So I don't need you relearning who you are anymore. I need you over religious, and I need you completely cut off from your history, of your glory, of your past triumph, because I'm now robbing you blind. I've put you in poverty, and I need to keep you there. So I gotta give you fake history, say you was nothing, tell you that you're less than me, you're less than a human being. I gotta have you look up to me through religion, make all these religious figures white, make all your history with white people, tell you all your ancestors were bad and evil. That's the mind of a psychopath. See, that's their history, and that's their culture. They never turn the lights on. They turn the lights off. What? What are you saying here, John?
I'm saying they had to scare you about your culture.
Yeah, they made your culture evil. He told you was wicked. Didn't understand.
Yeah.
You were wicked because you knew how to do spiritual practice, stuff that's through nature. It told you when you worshiping a tree and all this. Africans didn't worship trees. They talk to trees. Trees are living beings. Trees can talk to you. You can talk to trees. You don't believe me? Clean out the system. Get alkaline, go to the tree and talk to it. Ask the tree to touch your hand. It'll touch your ass. Because the tree is a magnetic field communication system, like a world wide web, but through nature. These are facts. White man is learning this now. You knew all this 1,000 years ago because you're super geniuses. But he got you believing you're wicked and evil. So, not understanding that you come from a people of greatness. These religions you worship are all new. So what about the people that lived before your fake Jesus or your fake Allah? Did they all go to hell? They didn't know your Jesus. They didn't know your Allah. Make it make sense. The true creator is not going to make himself unknown to you. There's nobody died went to some fake ass hell. Those people are in tune with nature and the creator itself. That's what Sufism is. That's what African practice, because God resides within you. The creator's inside. I don't like using the word God. That's some German made up white people shit. It's all fake. The creator of the universe, which is male and female, mostly female, right, resides inside of you. That's why everything they teach you is about fear and subjugation. The God of your Bible and the Quran is a psychopath. Tell you to kill innocent men, women, and children. What creator is this? That's the mind of a psychopath. That's why they made it. If you understood your culture, you would reject the Bible. You reject the Quran. What homicidal maniac creator is telling you to genocide women and children? It's in your Bible. Telling you to slit women's throats and stab babies in the face. That's in your Bible. Because your Bible is not the creator of the universe. has nothing to do with the creator. That's from the minds of a psychopath who took your science and mixed it all up. And also what? Subjugates the woman. Your Bible subjugates women. That's a fact, which is anti-creator. Because the creator made the woman first. Another fact. That's a fake Adam and Eve story you got. The black woman is the first. This is a scientific fact. What you want to say here, Tom? I thought you said something.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought you had said
No,
something. My
but
fault. I guess
still, people
you
are
said
still
what now?
questioning things right now, which is a good thing because we were taught not to question stuff.
Of course, you
You
got to.
can't hear me?
Yeah, if you don't. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. If you don't question, but you're told not to question is a lie. You question everything. That's why your religion is a lie. What religion is going to get you not to question something? Which I was taught too as a kid. Then it's a lie. If you can't
Mm,
question, if anything you believe cannot stand up to observation and scrutiny and constant questioning, then it's a lie. That's why I tell you not to question it.
right.
You know,
Because if you question, you're gonna get the real truth about everything
exactly,
you've been told not to question.
exactly, exactly.
Yes. And
And
that's and yeah.
old African science tells you what? Question everything, research everything, be inquisitive about everything, because that's African. Be inquisitive about everything, ask everything, look and observe. Say, how's this work? How's that work? What's my relation to myself, the earth, and the universe? Myself, the earth, and the creator. What's my relationship? How does it work? You can only answer those things through questioning those things. But you get born into a fake religion. Tell you don't question that. Don't question God. Well, I know this is a God. Can you tell me this? Because my parents are stupid. I'm not supposed to question and find out. Everything is supposed to learning is question and answer. What are you talking about? Now you give me some religion. I'm born into. I'm not supposed to question. This Bible's telling me to kill every man, woman, and child in a village. In this place called Jericho, God is telling me to kill everybody. God is telling me a race of people are cursed. What wicked ass creator curses a people? A perfect being can never put a curse on anybody. So your biblical God is a lie. Because a perfect being would never curse anybody. You understand that? But that's why they want to keep you uneducated. See, if you don't have good education, you can't understand religion. And that's why Africa is made sure they don't get good education. You're giving school fees and then make sure you don't get good education. Because the religion is a form of control. I can control you. We know what religion means, what? To bind the mind. Look this up, here, Tom. Say, what is the,
Okay.
say, what is the, um, ask Google say, what is the etymology of religion? Say, what is the etymology of religion? Let's see if they change that. It means to bind the mind. They tell you right there what it means to bind the mind. Then what is the etymology of the word not the practice? What is the etymology of the word religion, not the practice, but just the word itself?
Mm, okay. It says good faith, ritual in quotes, and other similar meanings, or it may have come from the Latin um religare, which means to tie fast.
The time that means bind. That time means bind. It means bind the mind. Yeah, it's how they change as the wake happen. That all your definitions are now get changed. You can easily look that up 10 years ago and tell you what it was. To bind the mind. They just tie something. Now every time come and be some goopy tie something.
Says
It means
also,
well,
originally in the sense life under Mosaic vows, I believe, from Old French or from Latin religion, obligation Latin to bind.
Exactly, bind. So they missed the mind part. It changed, but it meant bind the mind because it captures your mind. It's live. It meant bind. See, that's why you're not taught good education. So you don't know what etymology means, how to go back and research things. That's why you're not given good education. Why you stuck in your goopy church screaming the nonsense that ain't even real. Because your mind is bounded. It means to bind the mind. Okay? You're binding the mind to lies and nonsense. That's what religion means. But you wouldn't know that because you're poorly educated. That's why you're poorly educated. Because if you were intelligent and given the right answer, you would go back to the etymology of a word and say, okay, what's this word really mean? So you would start, like you said, here times you start asking questions. Okay, religion, what does it mean? That's a question. You go, let's go see. And now that you know everybody's lying to you, you have to go deeper and deeper and deeper to get the truth. Because usually they used to be able to tell you easily. It means bind the mind. Bind my mind. What does bind my mind mean? It means bind your mind with bullshit. It's a lie. They know it's a lie. But it's for power. It's to bind your mind with nonsense. Your whole life you worship nonsense. Your mind is bounded to bind the mind. But you would never know that because you were told not to ask questions and you're too ignorant because you're miseducated. That's on purpose. So, um, anybody got any more comments there, Tom?
Yes, we do have
Okay.
comments over here. I'm gonna go back a bit.
All right.
Um, Kindly allow me a moment to see where it starts, if I read that or not. Okay, an American black woman invented the disposable sanitary clothes for menstruation. Yeah, that is true, but it's never mentioned at all. And then we do have white people don't wash their hands after going to the bathroom. Toilet
Nope.
water was given to white people because they did not bath at all.
Yeah,
We do also have
yeah. Toilet water is cologne here, Todd. That's cologne and perfume. So they created perfume and cologne because they didn't take baths. And so the word pardon me, when you say pardon me, you think it means can I get by you? I'm sorry. Pardon me means excuse me because I stink here, Todd. See, that's why you gotta know etymology. Pardon me came from excuse me, I stink. You know, because they didn't believe in bathing. And so they created cologne and perfume, which they called toilet water because they smelled like doo doo. That's why it's called toilet water. Learning these things, you're like, what?
we also have
That's what perfume, that's what perfume was for? Yes. Because they stunk. Go ahead, Chuck.
we have Jibba Jabber saying Black history in U.S. schools. Lincoln freed the slaves. Rosa wouldn't get up, and MLK had a dream. We also do
Exactly. It's all
have
fake.
um, okay, as you mentioned yesterday regarding the MLK um, story or history that we are always talking about. You mentioned something about that yesterday,
Oh yeah, I was talking about
Mr.
I
Newsom.
was yeah,
Okay, we do have
that was on the brother show when you went off. Yeah,
Nelson
about
Mandela.
Nelson Mandela, MLK, and
Yeah,
all these old fake black puppets that they put in front of us as a media psyop for you to worship people that really destroyed us as a people. Nelson Mandela's, your MLKs, and you perpetuate that worship of people who really destroyed us as a people. So go ahead, Airtime, you got it.
We have different saying facts. Why would God be jealous? And then he
It's
mentioned
like a
the
jealous, it's
Schofield
like a
Bible
jealous God.
given to.
Yeah, the Scofield Bible was written by the Rothschilds, and they believe everybody to destroy the minds. Yeah, the new 150 years ago, that Scofield Bible was even worse, written by the Rothschilds. It is this. Well, sponsored by the Rothschilds, written by Scofield. They the ones paid for it. That indoctrination is so crazy. But yeah, how can a perfect being be jealous? The creator's not jealous of anybody. Who is out there for the creator to be jealous of? It's everything. It's the beginning. It's the alpha and the omega. There's nothing to be jealous. There's nothing for it to be jealous of. The feminine and masculine energy that it is. But you're not educated enough. Like you're not. You haven't been taught how to critically think. When you heard that, you would know this ain't no God. I'm a jealous God. Then you ain't fucking God. The creator's perfect. How can you be jealous and perfect at the same time? See, then you know you start questioning the lie. Go ahead, John.
Saying, last time I was invited to a church by this crazy woman, they told me I was a demon because I didn't speak in tongues. They even tried to get me to bring stones. Okay. Oh, to throw at the
You,
devil? Can you believe
you see
that?
this
I
nonsense?
can't
That is
believe it.
crazy.
It's too
Who's that?
much.
Who's that? Who's that? General Mosquito?
It's General Tito.
General
Yes.
Mosquito. Yeah, imagine how crazy. See how ignorant that is? Because religions are for the dumb. Are for the dumb. That's on purpose. You didn't say in a fake language, somebody just making up shit. You know, saying they got the Holy Ghost, right? And just throwing stones at nothing. Because that's the ignorance. In order for religions to work, you must stay ignorant. That's why when Irta was reading about, that's why they were what closing all the libraries, burning all the schools down. In order to keep control through these fake religions, you must be ignorant to practice them. Because as you learn more knowledge, that more is not just start waking up. Because Sufism is African science. It tells you that the creator is within. You go within. You're part of the creator. Anything outside of you is a lesser God. This Jesus, this Allah, this other stuff, this Hindu nonsense, those are lesser gods. Because they're not gods. They're made up control systems. The creator resides with inside you. You have to go within. And that's when the Septuagint was, when the Old Testament, the Africans who were writing it, they put some real knowledge in there, but you got to be smart enough to know what it is. You can't be a dummy and read it word for word, because when they were forced to write this fake book, the whites, they told them to make them a guy, and they wrote the part of the Old Testament, the Septuagint. They put some real knowledge in it, but if you're not smart enough, intelligent enough to catch it, you won't know. You think it's just okay. It's just this bullshit. No, the Bible's got some esoteric stuff, just like Sufism does with Islam. But you got to be intelligent enough to catch it. And they tell you that the Bible's bullshit in there too. They tell you it's bullshit, and they also tell you some real stuff in it. They tell you, yeah, we're writing bullshit, but you're going to find real stuff in it if you're smart enough. So there's real esoteric creative science in the Bible, in the Quran too. But if you're not intelligent enough, you will never catch it because it's esoteric. It's not exoteric, it's esoteric. And if you're not esoteric, like being a Sufi or esoteric knowledge or ancient African science, now if you go do ancient African science, then you can read the Bible and say, oh, they put it there. That's it. When Jesus says, ye are gods. Okay, this is the esoteric meaning that they're writing, right? That you were supposed to pick up. That God, that Jesus, the fake Jesus, is not a real person, but through the fakeness, the teachings he's telling you, ye are gods. Put us up here, John, real quick. Say, go to Google and say the verse, say the Bible verse where Jesus tells his disciples, ye are gods. I want you to read that. He's telling you, you're God too. And things I do, you can do the same and even more. You were supposed to understand that not as the fake religion, but as understanding you are God within. You're not supposed to be worshiping anything because you are God like Jesus. You are the Christ. What's about not the Jesus, the Christ. You are Christos as well. You find it, Ayrton?
Yes. The verse where Jesus refers to people being called gods is John 10:34, where he says, is it not written from Psalms 82:6, which states, I said, you are gods. You are all sons of the Most High.
And they didn't read it. They didn't read the part where it says, ye are gods, and the things I do, you'll do
Right?
more and even greater. That's, you hear me every time? Am I breaking up again?
You're good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jesus answered them, sorry, is it not written in your law, I said ye are gods? If he called them gods unto whom the word of God came, the scripture cannot be broken, said ye of him whom the Father has sanctified and sent into the world.
See, now, a regular Christian would understand that they would do the exoteric. I don't even know what that means. Why Jesus called me? It's not the fake Jesus. Remember, the J didn't exist. There's nobody ever named Jesus. See, even that book will tell you Jesus, but that's a lie because J didn't exist. So wasn't nobody ever named any Jesus anyway, right? So we know that. They're saying the Christ. The Christ is a title, not a person. It's a frequency. So it's an individual saying, you are Christ too. You are the Christ. And what you're supposed to do as you raise your frequency, all the things you say I'm doing, you can do too. Because ye are God or Christ like me. That's the Christ telling you, esoterically, that there's nobody better than you. You got to go inside to find your Christhood. But if you're ignorant and you're caught in your goofy religion, you'll miss that because you're taking
It's in John 14,
exoterically. Oh, go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
it's in John 14. Those are two different Bible verses. This one is John 14:12 that says, ye can do greater things, is a direct quote from the Bible. In John 14:12, in the context, Jesus is speaking to his disciples, promising that they will do the work that he has done and even greater things because he is going to the Father.
Well, it's exactly. So then that he's telling you that you are the same. You are Christ once you raise your frequency. So, but you can understand that coming from a Christian perspective. You got to have an African science perspective to understand what he's telling you. Because you would know that no one was ever named Jesus. Okay? You understand that's the title of Christ. And that we're all Christ once we raise our vibration. That's why Buddha was called a Christ. That's why Krishna in the Hindu religion was called a Christ. Christhood is not a person, it's a frequency, it's a vibration. Once you reach a certain level of understanding, knowledge, care, and love, okay? Once you reach a certain level of understanding, knowledge, care, and love, you become a Christ. And then you can do all these great miraculous things because the Creator lives in all of us. You just got to ignite through knowledge, dedication, discipline, these Christ-like attributes within you. See, but if you understand African science, you would have known what that was saying. But just being a Christian, you would never have got that. What do you mean? Jesus telling me I'm a God too? First of all, there is no Jesus.
Yes, you
He's the
are.
Christ. Yeah, but you
If he
wouldn't
existed,
understand
he
that.
will be dark skinned.
Yeah, he would. He was in Africa, so he'd be an African, of course. But exactly. So, I think we got to wrap it up, guys. I think time's coming to an end. Yeah, 2 hours.
Really, all right, but this was a very interesting conversation. I believe this history about the Moors should definitely be in our books, but it's not. Can you imagine if everybody was taught this at a younger age? If I was
Of
taught
course,
this at a
you would take
younger
your power
age,
back. Yeah,
right?
you would take your power
It's
back. No,
sad.
I'm not saying why.
No, I'm saying it's sad because I'm
Of
not
course it is.
saying it's a bad thing that I'm learning it right now, but I'm like, I should have learned a long time ago.
I didn't learn it either, Irritan and child. They're not going to teach you, Irritan, your greatness. They're trying to oppress you and keep you on the bottom. They're not going to teach you your greatness. They're going to hide that. And we should have learned this.
But
You're right. I didn't
yeah,
learn this until I was an adult either. So we're in the same boat. I didn't learn this stuff when I was like 19, 20 years old. So we're in the same boat.
right. But nature always comes back to its natural cause, so it's all good. It always comes back to ours.
It does.
It does,
You can't you can't
regardless.
hide you can't hide the truth forever. No matter how much they try to hide the truth and change reality, the truth always bumps up against a lie, and eventually the truth
Mm,
bleeds through a lie. Always. That's what I told you. These religions, child just like that, these religions might got another 30 years. It's like about the end of the world and the last hope and all. Because as the Africans' knowledge comes back online, these religions won't be able to sustain the truth. So they're going to fall by the wayside. That's why the that's why that's why the church um uh, uh excuse me the church attendance is down everywhere. Put us up here, John. Say it doesn't matter what denomination you're Catholic, Protestant, Baptist, Seventh Day Adventist, whatever church, whatever you follow in Christianity. Put say as Google say church attendance is down globally. Say is church attendance down globally. And the only place it's holding right now is Africa. And once Africa's shaken off, it's done. It's a wrap for this thing. Because people are asking questions and they don't make sense. Can't tell me you're a jealous God and you're God. Can't tell me you're a
Sorry, this is what
wrathful
it
God.
says. How
What does it say?
This trend is not uniform across all regions. Globally, Christianity continues to grow, with the number of Christians expected to increase from 2.52 billion in 2020 to 2.63 billion by 2241. Okay.
I
However,
doubt
regular
that.
church attendance has declined
Yeah,
in
it's
many
declined.
major
I
parts
doubt.
of the world,
Yeah, I doubt that. Only part
in
that's held up
Western
airtime is in Africa. Only place was held up and kept held up airtime is Africa, because they need Africans to be religious, either with Islam or Christianity, because you got the wealth of the world. So I need this indoctrination to continue. But I don't think it will, because too many Africans are waking up and saying, nah, this religion is some bullshit. I'm going back to, you told me
There
to
is a
hate my
rising
ancestors. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Turn.
in Western Flavor, Catholic Church parishes are closing frequently. And then we do also have research service. You'll put down that Bible. Um, Prophetess Iwertan Longoria after reading that sermon. Okay, General Mosquito. Saying that Tanisha Wilson, how are you doing? You are the Christ. And then Tanisha Wilson is saying the kingdom of heaven is within you. That is totally true. And then we also do have a comment that I was supposed to read right away. The Quran has direct passages from the King James Bible.
Of course it is. It's a ripoff. The people that created the Quran are the Catholic Church here. That's why it's a
Mm,
scam. Because understand, see, that's why you got to go through history again. Understand when they got it with Arabic, right? There was no Arabic. There was no language. So they created a language because the white Arab was ignorant, like all other white people. They were ignorant and backward. So they tried to get them to worship the Christian faith, but they refused it. Irritant. They said, "Nah, ain't nobody come back from the dead and a God." No, so they refused to accept it. So it's about power and dominance. Irritant. So they created a new religion. They said, "Okay, they won't accept the fake Jesus shit. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this Muhammad character. And we're going to say it's one of them." And so they're going to accept it that way. And then we're going to create a language, because there was no language. We're going to create a language to go with the religion, and that will tie them to the religion, because you're reborn in this language, Iraton. And so that will bind you to this religion. And so so it's about control. Because you look this up, Iraton. Say when was the Arabic language created? And it tell you the same time that goofy Islam was, because they created the religion with with the language, Iraton. Because they know with the language you can bind somebody to a religion easier, because it's part of their culture, part of their language.
Okay, the fast known written translations of portions of the Bible into Arabic
No, not the Bible.
are to
No, I'm
have
asking
emerged in
not the Bible. I'm not asking about the Bible. I'm saying
huh?
when was the Arabic language created?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm asking when was the Arabic language created? They're not gonna tell you who created the Islam here, Tom. You gotta go deep study that. They're not gonna tell you that on Google.
Okay. The Arabic language didn't have a specific creation date.
Of
It
course
evolved
not.
over time. Proto Arabic, an early form of the language, is believed to have been spoken in the Arabian Peninsula as early as the 2nd century BCE. The
Seven cent.
written form of Arabic, uh,
So so seven seven cents.
particularly classical Arabic, developed later with inscriptions dating back to the 5th century.
So 7th century Irritan is when you get to Islam, 600 AD. So that's when you get to Islam. In that
You're cutting off.
you get Arabic, you create the religion. You hear me now? I'm
I'm
about to
so
cut
sorry.
off.
Okay, you're good now.
That's okay. Can you hear me now? Oh yeah.
Yes.
See, that's when you get the religion and the language created at the same time, Irritan, because they knew to control some people, create a language. Why would they create a new language? Why is this language just being created at that time? Who needed a new language, Irritan? They had a language already. Why would they create a whole new language? Because it bound you to the religion that they were creating, Irritan.
Mm.
That's why they created the goofy language for the goofy religion. Because you were going to be born into that language, means you're going to be born into that religion.
Alrighty. We have the last
You're
comment
not going
here,
to find.
MLA.
So, yeah, that's it. Good.
Webster Dubois also didn't do anything for Black people either, and Frederick Douglass was another integrationist.
Exactly. Yeah, that Frederick
Yeah.
Douglass. They got you loving that more. It was really, it was really, what's his name? Marvin Delaney? What's his name? I remember the brave part. Who was a real revolutionary that never speak to him. Martin Delaney. Martin Delaney. Put us up before we leave, dear Tom. We about to go. What does it say? Say who was Martin Delaney of the 19th century?
He was a prominent African American and writer of the 19th century. He's known for his stylist, editor, and Civil War veteran. He was one of the first African Americans admitted to Harvard medical
I
school.
got kicked out.
You're back
I got
again.
kicked out. Say, ask who was Martin Delaney?
Um, this is what this has. He was a prominent African American intellectual,
There you go.
physician, and writer of the 19th century. He's known
Yes.
for his advocacy of Black nationalism and his work as a journalist, editor, and Civil War veteran. He was one of the first African Americans admitted to Harvard Medical School.
No. So he was brilliant, but you never hear about him here, Tom. Nowhere in our history. You hear about Frederick Douglass being the great dude. You never hear about Martin Delay. You know why? Because he says we got to get arms and get free of these white people. We got to stop this slavery. And if we got to go to war, we go to war. We die if we got to die, but we're not going to live in slavery no more. That's why he's not in any of your history books here, Tom.
Yeah, I've never heard of him. I've just heard him today. Dang.
Exactly. You see, he was a Harvard graduate, the number one college in America. He was a doctor, a journalist. That means he was a Renaissance man. He was brilliant, but you never hear nothing
Yeah.
about him. Never. You keep hearing about Frederick Douglass boot licking ass, who married a white woman when he got old. Next to his damn black one. He's probably fighting for black people, but he marrying white people. That's how you know he's a communist phone. That's why they always put Frederick Douglass in our face. This sellout Negro. Like he was like the Martin Luther King of the 19th century.
As we're almost
This.
wrapping up.
Yeah, much love, family.
Also, the last comment by Deeper Dabber is saying Martin Delaney learned to read by sitting outside the window of the all white school he could not attend.
Wow, I didn't know that. Wow. See, so he couldn't even attend school. Remember, their culture every time, turn off the lights. You can't get educated. So he learned by sitting out the classroom. And this guy went to Harvard.
Look at that. How brilliant. Super brilliant guy over there that we should definitely be learning about. We have all these
I don't know.
African inventors should definitely be in our because they're not there. They should be the ones we're actually learning about each and every day, but they are not in our books. You know,
Nope.
we
Nope.
have a lot
Every
of
time they're not.
African inventors, like different things, the ones who literally invented stuff that we're using right now. Amazing. But
Yep.
hey, you're not gonna read that every day. You're not gonna search about that and
No.
maybe find it,
No, because
you know?
no, because I won't. If you get to learn about that, I won't. You won't get treated like a dirty Negro here, Todd. I won't get to subjugate you and talk crazy about you. Call you dirty Negro, Iraton. You know your worth. You know your value, Iraton. People can't gaslight
Yeah,
you
it's
and say you're less than.
but it's amazing because that's what they feel about themselves and they project their insecurities towards us because they know who we are.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But you wouldn't
That's
know that,
why
Iraton, unless you were educated enough to know
everybody,
that.
yeah, because
You have to
anybody
be
who's
educated
not
enough to know what you
intimidated
just
by
said.
they'll be cool with you, right? If anybody is not intimidated, they're not going to show any type of, intimidation. But because I see, like, I know who you are,
Exactly.
I know, oh my gosh, you're one of the greatest of all time. I'm gonna always try to remind you, like, you're nothing and you're not worthy each and every day.
Exactly. Exactly.
To make
You're
yourself feel better
superior
about
to
yourself
me, Airtime.
because
You
you
don't
know
need to
where
keep.
you are constantly.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. If you're superior to me,
You
you,
feel
you ain't got to tell
better.
me. You ain't got to keep telling me I ain't shit. I ain't nobody.
It's your insecurities projecting. So hey, and that's how we're winding up.
Exactly. You got, but you got to be educated enough to know what you just said, Airtime. Much
Yeah,
love, family.
that is true. I very much love amazing, amazing conversation today. The history of the Moors who created the Europeans' Enlightenment. I'm gonna see you guys tomorrow. Thank you, Jiba Jabber, Ten Nature. A lot of people literally turned up today. I'm gonna see you guys tomorrow. Have a blast. I'm sending you so much love and light. Take care.
Feel the hit. Feel the freshness.